Hello, this is Richard Kuhns of the Stress Management Institute, welcoming you to Sleeping Peacefully Through the Night. This program is in two parts. Part 1 is for your conscious mind, your intellectual self. Listen to Part 1 as often as possible, while driving your car, at home, wherever. Listen to Part 2, the relaxation hypnoidal portion, with subliminal suggestions, every night as you go to bed. It is for your subconscious mind. Part 1 is found on tracks 1 through 3. Part 2, the relaxation, is on track 4. This program is not intended as a cure for insomnia. Insomnia is a medical term and a medical problem for which you need to seek medical advice. Sometimes sleeplessness can be a side effect of a particular medication. It can also be a symptom of clinical depression, which is also an issue for which you need professional psychological assistance, and may find the Up From Depression program available on my website very interesting in helping to understand the subject of depression. Aside from the medical and psychological issues that I just mentioned, difficulty in sleeping can be attributed to 3 basic reasons, and dealing with all 3 will augment any medical or psychological treatment you are undergoing. 1. Nutritional deficiencies. 2. Stress overload. And 3. Conditioning. Now, if your quality of sleep is poor or less than desired, the first and easiest thing to do is to use calcium citrate, available in most health food stores as a liquid. Take it every night a half hour before bedtime. I would imagine you've already gotten rid of caffeinated beverages. But remember, chocolate has caffeine, and so do many teas. If you have a particular food allergy, it could also create anxiety and sleeplessness. The best way to identify a food allergy is to keep an eating diary. List everything you eat and drink, and note your feelings physically and emotionally within 20 minutes to an hour after you eat or drink anything. Do it for a week, and then look for patterns of when you felt anxious, irritable, depressed, and what you might have eaten 20 to 60 minutes before. Also look for any foods or drink that may be a habit. You just must have that bagel or that soda. It's often what you feel you can't go without having to which you're addicted. It's generally the food or drink of which you're very fond and not necessarily something that you eat before bedtime. Hypoglycemia, which is caused by eating high-sugar foods and processed flours, can also contribute to insomnia. Give yourself half a chance by moving away from white flour as found in many breads, rolls, bagels, and pastries. And move away from foods with sugar, corn syrup, and high fructose, as you'll find in commercially prepared cookies, soda, juices, ice creams. Eat foods made of whole flours and drink only unsweetened juices. Let's look at the stress response. Whenever something threatens our lives, like somebody physically attacking us or a near auto accident, our brain prepares us to fight or run. It's called the fight or flight. Of course, you'd ask, what's the relevance? Whenever your brain perceives something of a threatening nature, it prepares your body to fight or run. Any one of the following occurs. Your blood pressure goes up. Sweat glands activate. Muscles tighten. Anxiety is heightened. IQ drops. Fingers and toes become cooler. So what's the connection? I mean, you're lying in bed trying to sleep, nothing is threatening your life, right? Yes and no. Before I explain, let's look at the stress response. There are 3 steps in the stress response, otherwise known as a general adaptation syndrome, GAS. First, there's the alarm. It's a stressor that takes you away from your homeostatic level. Second is the resistance phase, which is the body's attempt to get back to homeostasis. Homeostasis is when the body is in a neutral, inactivated state. If we're being physically attacked, we'll physically defend ourselves, or in a case of a near accident, channel that energy into defensive driving, and hopefully not into frozen fear. The end result is to get things back to the original state. Hopefully homeostasis. I say hopefully homeostasis because many of us adapt to higher and higher levels of stress year after year and end up with a pseudo-heightened homeostatic level. In other words, we adapt to higher and higher levels of body activation, all the while thinking we're at normal levels and that we're relaxed. Thirdly, if one doesn't get back to homeostatic level, exhaustion is the end result. Unfortunately, going to sleep with exhaustion doesn't provide restful sleep, as you pretty well know, and you awaken feeling like you haven't slept at all. So where does the anxiety, the elevated blood pressure, and muscle tension come from? During the second stage, the resistance stage, is when the body automatically activates the fight or flight, which is also known as the sympathetic nervous system. Restful sleep requires activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which doesn't happen if the sympathetic system is activated. Back to the original question. Why is your body preparing itself to fight or run when you're in bed wanting to sleep, and there's no physical threat to you? It's important to understand that the fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, is not only activated when there is a real physical threat, but also when there is a threat to your ego, your family status, your self-worth, your finances, or your social status. The fascinating thing is that your brain, which is responsible for the activation, doesn't care whether it's a real threat or a perceived threat. Of course, when there's a real threat, it's easy to see the connection and understand what's happening, and once you get done fighting or running, you get back to normal. However, who are you going to fight or run away from when your ego, self-worth, family, social or financial status is threatened? That's right. There's no one or nothing that you can fight or from which to run. Yet your brain has prepared you to fight or run just the same. What part of the brain is responsible for this? It's the part that's connected to our five senses, the subconscious brain.